Welcome to a Voltron toy review from Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. Check us out at letsvoltron.com.
Welcome, Voltron fans, to another exciting podcast. We have Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast, coming at you in 2024, the 40th anniversary year of Voltron. And of course, I have my co-host, Greg Tyler. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, Mark. That was a mouthful. 40th anniversary this year. That's amazing. I would never have thought 40 years ago that I would even be alive in 40 years, much less doing a podcast about my favorite cartoon of all time. So, an 8-year-old just doesn't think that far ahead. So, in any case, yes, we're back in 2024. We've got two really awesome guests whom we have had the privilege of meeting multiple times at VoltCon, and they're here to tell us all about an exciting item. But we'll get into that later, that item. But first, why don't we meet the people?
Yes. So joining us on the podcast for the first time ever is Tim Roston. Say hi, Tim.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you, Tim.
Nice to see you guys also.
And then we also have Kyle Belair.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, good to see you.
Greg and I have both met Kyle at VoltCon.
And Tim was there 1 year as well.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him there as well. So
I was there in 2022. Missed last year.
That was the year I wasn't there, Greg.
Oh, that's right. I can't keep up.
That was the year we actually did a remote from Zoom so that we could do a Sunday panel. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was. Tim, Kyle, I mean, in addition to being great human beings and great fellow Voltron fans, you've got some really cool news. There's something on the Voltron store that the two of you can lay claim to. And what is that?
Yeah, so we are running we're producing a 14-inch Robeast, Dieklops Robeast. He's going to be made out of vinyl. Here's a 3D version of him, and he has two 10-inch swords. You can see how big they are. Let me spread my head.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, here's one up against a lion. So I mean, you can see the swords are quite large, and the figure is relatively light. We said he's vinyl. He will be vinyl, and they print the vinyl hollow, so it'll be a relatively light toy for for people to play with and use. But it's being limited to 500 figures produced, and they're exclusively on the Voltron store.
That's super exciting. And the big deal about this, not only is it Dieklops, who was the second Robeast that our heroes ever encountered back in the '84 show.
Yeah, second Robeast.
This is also the very first Voltron-sized Robeast figure ever, unless you count by pure technicality, the small Panosh place Robeast up against that pencil sharpener version of Lion Voltron. This is the real deal, right? I mean,
yes, that was why we decided to go with the 14-inch, was to make him. I mean, he is basically the exact same size as Panosh Place Voltron.
And that makes him a little bigger than the Matchbox version and the Toynami version. And, a lot of them clock in at around 11, 12 inches. And this guy's going to tower over them a bit. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's beefy.
A Dieklops was also the Robeast that the Voltron force was fighting when the new castle emerged.
Yes.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And Princess joined up the episode.
Right.
Episode 5.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. So,
and I believe he also appeared in one of the later Voltrons also. And the Dieklops is also in the cardboard game. He is the figure in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he's also in one of the Shrinky Dinks.
Yeah, so he's been around, but just not in gigantic figure form until now.
Right.
Yeah. So what is your story to the two of you? Obviously, you guys are fans who have taken it to the next level. Where did it all begin for you guys? How did you guys get involved and become interested in Voltron?
Oh, I used to collect GI Joe, and I collected GI Joe from 93 to about 2007. And I got tired of there was just so many vehicles of GI Joes, and so I thought, hey, I'm going to go collect a line of toys that I had as a kid. I had my castle and I had my Doom Blaster still. I said, I'm going to collect this line. I'm going to get it all. And I didn't realize all the a number of different variations and stuff that have come in the Panosh Place line. I only collect Panosh Place toys, and so I don't collect anything else. And yet I have 10 different sets of lions boxes, and 10 different I have 9 different sets of the window box, and I have 4 different versions of the full art box. And so every country had their own box variation, and the United States had 3 different types of variations in their boxes. So so I started collecting just to try to scale down, and in reality the room is just as full as it was with the GI Joe.
And Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, so I've been a Voltron collector for several years now, and having got to know Tim and some various other people through the groups, we've heard people speak that there's never been a full-size Robeast for Voltron to fight.
Right.
And that's been a kind of a complaint through literally every version and series of Voltron that's ever been made. So Tim and Adrian got together and started the idea of producing full-size Robeast, starting with Dieklops. And I was involved a little bit in the beginning. They would bounce some ideas off me and kind of ask what I thought about design and whatnot. And so I kind of stepped in kind of more on the marketing, graphic design, R&D kind of role. So I've definitely helped box art, doing the R&D for the 3D printing of the models to make sure that we're in tune with what the factory in China is producing, to make sure that we have a one-to-one replica of what they have, so we can make adjustments and tweaks. So that's kind of my role with this project.
Okay. And then we should mention that Adrian Kent was supposed to join us on the podcast tonight, but with a schedule conflict, he was not able to make it to join us all. So so he had a very pivotal role in all of this as well. And you guys have not just brought a Robeast into the fray of Voltron collecting, a Voltron-sized Robeast. You've also resuscitated a Voltron-sized trademark. And what is that?
Yes, Adrian and I have secured the trademark for the Panosh Place. He filed for it through the Australia trademark, and then obviously it's worldwide. And so we hold the Panosh Place trademark since we filed in May of 2021 and hold it now. So
That's really cool. I mean, it's such a neat thing to not just have a Robeast for our still my favorite Voltron, which is the Panosh Place version, and I know that it has its detractors for legitimate reasons. I mean, there are people who aren't fond of it for various reasons, understandable, but it has always been my personal favorite. And it's great to not only have a nice faux for it, but now that logo's back, which brings back a lot of nostalgic memories.
yes, I mean, we really wish that after this Robeast, after we do our 500, we plans to do additional items in the future. If it just depends on what the market says they're willing to get. If we can show us that they want more, we're going to try to produce more.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've already got several ideas and several things kind of working on down the pipeline. Don't want to reveal too much yet, but like Tim said, if we can get and generate enough interest and the fans say, hey, this is something we want, we'll be here for a while. We've got a lot of ideas.
It's great.
Yeah, I have 5 figures already sculpted. Again, we're not going to say what they are, but we have 5 figures already sculpted, ones that have never been introduced as figures in the toy line before.
Wow. 5.
So
That's cool.
So yeah, so I mean they're ready to go once we sell this, and then we will do another figure after that.
Have there been any challenges with, getting the 3D model and then, how to produce 500 of them? What were your challenges going into this?
Could we
Well,
step back real quick? Because I want to hear that, definitely. But do either of you or does Adrian have experience in doing any of this before? Or did you learn this from the ground up as you went?
we're learning this from the ground up. I have another gentleman who is running a toy line. He lives down in Georgia, and he's assisting us.
Okay. And then what?
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to cut in. What have some of those challenges been?
Uh, time. I mean, talking to Kyle, and just his production of a box has taken a lot more than I ever imagined would make a box, especially a box that would be similar to the box that was produced in 1985. We're trying to keep the nostalgia of the toy as much as we possibly can. So that has been a huge challenge. And just communication with the factory. Like, I only communicate with my contact at the so the person who's helped me in Georgia, he does all the communication with the factory because he's also working on his other toys with the same factory.
Mhm.
So that is just getting communication back and forth, or getting timelines or anything of that nature just has been taking forever.
Yeah, so I'll say that some of the things that are kind of complicated from my side of things is like to start back in the beginning, like the original hand sculpted Dieklops. It was what 4
4 and a half inches.
Yeah, 4.5 inches. It's what we showed at Voltron. And so basically that model was sent to the factory. They scanned it, cleaned up the scans, and produced a STL files or a 3D image of Dieklops, then scaled it up. In that process, there was a couple of things that we found that they missed. Like, for example, so I've got here a painted 3D model version, a prototype.
Beautiful.
One of the things that they missed on the right arm here was one of these arm spikes. They for whatever reason missed it in the sculpt or whatnot. So that was one of the items that we had to point out that they had to go back and fix. Likewise, if you can see the kind of curve on the head spike here, the initial design was straight. So we had to work with the factory to kind of go back and correct that to kind of make it more cartoon accurate.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we've kind of, I guess it's a blessing that we were able to communicate with them. But as Tim said, communication could be improved to make it a better process overall. So that's kind of just with like the 3D model side of things, and also having gotten the 3D files from the Chinese factory. Again, like I said earlier, it helped us. I could sit here and print them at home, and then I could have a 1-to-1 version in my hand to know exactly what the factory has, and I can hold it, I can look at it, and kind of scrutinize it to make sure that what they are going to manufacture is exactly what we're specifying.
Okay.
Yeah, like Greg, like the sword, the handle for the sword is not what it was when we originally started. It originally came out and had more of a axe handle type to it, and when they developed the hand with the opening, you had to take it in and almost lock it into place. Kyle redesigned the handle so you could actually just push it in place, and it's able to lock itself in by pressure versus locking it in by pushing it in and almost like keying it into a hole.
Yeah.
And when they redid the sword, they didn't upsize the handle on the sword to accommodate now the bigger hole in the hand. So that it was just flopping around like a wet noodle.
Yeah, that also was a struggle and a challenge to try to figure out, because the fist or the hand, however it would hold the sword, the original handle, like Tim said, was too small. They didn't upsize it, so we kind of had to go back to the drawing board and create it ourselves and upscale it. And we had to do all the testing here at home because obviously we could totally send the file back to China and they could print it and they could fit it, but we here wouldn't get a really good idea of how exactly it fits, right? So that's the benefit of being able to print it here and have a one-to-one version. And I think overall, I don't know, we went through what, 7 versions of the sword handle
Yeah.
before we finished or finalized on the one that we liked and fit the best. Because there was some that, you know, the fit was too tight and it literally cracked one of the hands. So we had to scale it down, and then it was a little too loose, and then it wouldn't fit through the opening. So there was lots of different things we had to figure out with the handle and the hand before we finally came to the final version here. Which
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, you can see your version, but you can see your version. Mine just blurred it out. So
Right. Very
yeah,
nice.
and it is going to have quite a bit of detail on it. You know, so also on the bottom here, there's grooves and you know,
That's nice. Is
Very
this
cool.
vinyl as well?
yeah, that'll be a vinyl sword also.
yeah,
Wow.
yep. And Dieklops, he will come with 2 swords. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, he'll have 2.
That's
So
great.
how do you go about communicating things like color? When it comes to paint, are you using like Pantone references or
I sent them the actual figure that you have behind you in the picture
okay,
from the miniature to the factory, and they matched it up color identical to that.
very nice.
They sent us a color sample off of the scan. They had color sampled it on and then sent us a picture of it. So yeah, it was spot on.
That's exciting. My goodness. So is it so I'm just going to ask. I know obviously there are things about this that are probably not as fun as others. What are some of the most fun parts about making your own item?
I guess for me, it's like Tim said, you know, with the box design, we're kind of trying to do a throwback to 80, you know, 84, 85 when this came out, to that kind of panache style box layout and color scheme and overall design. And for me, it's exciting to kind of recreate that and bring it back, that nostalgia. You know, that way it's not a modern looking box and modern looking designs on it. It'll fit, you know, right next to, you know, the 84 Panache box. It'll look like it was designed back in 84. And that's kind of my goal. So for me, it's really cool to bring back the nostalgia of it.
I
Yeah.
love the box art on those from the old days. I mean, just the almost campy, silly text on the front, and then on the back when you see the product photo and the little blurb about it. It's just something about it. It just takes you back, that style and look and just the tone of the text.
Yeah, there was one blurb that you're kind of mentioning that's on the side. It's funny. I've got one of the boxes here.
Yeah.
Of Voltron, it says, "Alone, each line is a powerful force against evil, but when they combine to form Voltron, they are awesome."
I just love that.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
remember, was it one of the coffins or one of the enemy ships? It's like uh Voltron force beware, the bad guys are gonna get you or whatever. It's just the fun childlike wonder of that sentence. It reads so well to a kid, you know.
Yeah, I think the coffin talks about beware, the Robeast is piloting the coffin of darkness, you know, to fight Voltron or something similar, something like that. So yeah, we tried to come up with some language like that for the box that is, you know, would take you back there. So it's been fun. You know what? Most fun for me is, I mean, Kyle and I have been working on this, and it's just actually the relationship that he and I have developed while working on this toy is probably the best part for me.
Oh,
Oh, that's cool.
that's nice.
Yeah, we talk multiple times every day.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
And
great.
it's not always about toy, but for a while there, I mean, you know, sometimes I get a little obsessive compulsive about stuff, and Kyle was great about letting that go.
So the communication between you two has been well, but it's communication in other areas that is still difficult, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, like Adrian, he obviously he's not with us today, but he lives in Australia,
Mhm.
and communicating with him is difficult because he is 15 hours different time difference than us. So when we're awake, he's usually asleep. If I catch him, it's usually when he's getting ready to go to bed, or when he's, or when or first thing in the morning.
And he's in a different season too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He says in Australia it never really gets where he's at. It doesn't really ever get cold. I think he says usually like it ranges between 70 and 90. So
Wow.
Yeah.
and I think he's in Bisbane area.
Ah.
I have had having had the privilege of meeting both of you before. Um, I think it's wonderful that your friendship has evolved along with this project in a good way, because I can imagine sometimes that the frustrations you must have if you didn't have that bond would make that even more challenging. You know what I mean? If the two of you didn't genuinely like each other as people, that would have to get pretty rough.
Yeah, for sure.
It was interesting, when Kyle and I met each other at the 2022 Volcon, and we kind of hit it off right away, and we kind of had the same sense of humor, and so we laughed about similar things, and there were some green things bouncing around that we chuckled about a lot, and so yeah, it was a good time, and so it's definitely been good to get to know him a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. It's not, I think we definitely have mutual respect for each other and each other's skill sets and knowledge. In addition to, it's kind of like we don't take things too seriously. We're not real serious guys. Like I could tell Tim like, hey, like we definitely shouldn't do this, and he doesn't take offense to that. He's like, okay, cool, whatever. Let's move on to the next thing, or it's not a big deal. It's and vice versa. He constantly hounds me. Is this done yet? Is this done yet? And I don't. No, I'm just kidding. But we don't.
It's true.
Can you guys imagine if you were trying to time this release to the same as a TV show that was being built for this?
No.
Yeah, it's that part of it's learning curve for me. Like I work in the graphic design business as during the day, but I've never done anything kind of on this scale, working with foreign factories and then trying to develop something across the world essentially. Um, so there's been a lot of learning for me on both sides.
Does
Yeah.
it get easier, or do you just learn to roll with the punches, or how does that, you know what I mean? In other words, if another project were to come along, you've talked about having some ideas. Do you feel like you know better what to expect, or uh, does it still feel like a big unknown in a lot of ways?
Oh no, I think next one done, it's gonna be a lot easier because I think we have know what to expect, what to have prepared before we even send it off, so it rolls more seamlessly than it has.
Yeah, I think for me, part of the biggest question that I've got, and I know Tim handles most of the communication of the factory, but it's kind of like I'll bring up a question, say, "Hey Tim, can you run this by the factory and kind of try to get an answer on it?" And some of the communication that we've got from them has kind of been very vague, or takes a while to get the feedback, right? So when I'm like, "Hey, I need to know specifics." For some of this, layout and design things to get something printed, and they don't give you that specific, result in return. It's kind of like, well, just got to wing it then. I guess they'll get what they get, and if they don't like it, then they'll say that and they'll ask for something different. So it definitely is kind of just winging it, kind of. What my expectation is, like if I were doing this or I was on their side, what would I expect? So that's kind of what I'm, designing to, whether or not they want it or not. That's my mentality, is like I would do it the way I wanted it, and that way I feel as though I'm giving them the best product, even if they're not asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though that, I mean, even though the communication is like when we sent them the 4-inch Dieklops, they scanned the physical hand sculpt themselves, and the item that we were able to print in a 14-inch version is identical to what the miniature that we sent them. I mean, it is. We made some changes, like we moved up the knee pads to make it more on the knee instead of down on his foot area. And the knee, the thigh blades that came out of his leg there, they had to be moved up a little bit too because they were too close to the knee pads there, knee spikes. So, I mean, but they have been great to work with when it comes to modification and the overall quality of the scan that they did with the item. And yeah, I was real happy with that.
I'm impressed by how well it scales, because 3D scanning is, in a lot of ways, as much an art as it is a science. And you can have really great technical stuff, but that's not easy to pull off and get a good scan of something that small, much less have that scan result be so good that you can enlarge it, what, 3 or 4 times to get the size of what you guys have.
Yes.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, that really worked out well. I've tried experimenting with my phone, doing the LiDAR scanning, and it's not bad. Clearly, it's on a phone, and some phones can be expensive, but it's not meant for that. It just has that capability, so it does all right. And I have used some previously. I've used some actual 3D scanners, and they do well. It just depends. At that point, it's kind of dependent on the quality of the scanner you get. Obviously, the higher quality, the better scan you're going to get. And I'm sure that they probably did some cleanup work on the other end after they got the scans. But yeah, it looks great. Very clean lines. Overall, it looks really good.
So for the people that have actually pre-ordered this on the Voltron store, is there some kind of an exclusive that you can give us here on the podcast that you can, prepare these people for what they're going to be getting?
I think they're going to get a really well-designed, well-thought-out product. There's been a lot of thought on the scale, the size, the weapons, the design, the box, just everything that's kind of gone into it, the thought. So it's not kind of going to be what I want to say, lower quality plastic. It's not going to be a lower grade quality product. It's going to be a high grade product, made out of vinyl, professional painting, from the factory, really well designed box. Like I said, it'll look like it came from the 84 Panosh line. So I think the fans, will be really happy once they see this, and hopefully it allows us to kind of open the door for future projects, because we've got a lot we want to do.
We tried to keep it in the theme of the Panosh place. So when we designed the toy, it was designed in a 5-point of articulation. So as of right now, that's still what we have. However, there may be some modifications that, based on the way the vinyl toy is put together. The factory hasn't explained whether or not they asked us about, they had to put the toy together in a certain places, like at the belt line, they had a break there where they had to, that part of the body is going to be glued. At his feet here, they had to have a part line there, and that part's going to be glued. At the wrist area where the spikes are at, that area needed a break there. So there's a possibility that could be articulated also, but we haven't heard back yet about whether or not that's going to happen. So as of right now, he's still a 5-point of articulation, but with the possibility that his forearms could rotate, which make it a little nicer for posing of the swords. But I'm happy with the way he looks now, but that would make him just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to get shipped like the first one so that you can make sure that it's okay, and then they'll do the rest, or how does that work?
As of right now, we're just doing everything. Instead of taking the time to have it shipped to us, they're just showing pictures and sending us the items files so we can print them out ourselves and verify that they're working out okay. The molds were to produce the figure were finished last week, and so production is supposed to start very soon.
That's encouraging, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we should point out, if this was not made clear, I can't remember how much we've gone into this, but this item is only available on the Voltron store. So
That's
if you
correct.
go to if you go to store.voltron.com, or you go to voltron.com and click the store link, if you don't see it immediately on the first page, there are multiple pages. You can always search for Robeast or Dieklops, like the word die, KLOPS, or just page through. You will find it. It is very exciting. I pre-ordered too.
Yeah, it will definitely. I mean, this will not be made again in this version. So I mean, we will not be making this version again. So if you miss out on this, this will be your only time to get this toy.
And
Yeah.
and it only had a $60 price point too.
Yes.
Can you explain how you came to that price point?
Yeah.
It was a bad decision on my part. It really was. When I priced the toy, I wanted to price the toy at the cheapest I could and still make some profit on it. But when I calculated that price, I didn't factor in how much it was going to cost. I didn't factor high enough how much it was going to cost to have it shipped to us.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, so it really reduced the margin on the toy. So that was definitely, that's how the pricing came up. I mean, I found out what the molds were going to cost, calculated that with what each figure costs, how much it costs to make each sword, how much it costs to make the box. And then I came up with the lowest price I thought we could sell it for, because I wanted to sell them and get reintroduced to the community. I wanted to be at the lowest price I possibly could be. But then the shipping cost came in a lot higher than I thought it would.
Yeah.
So
Well, for collectors, $60 is a phenomenally low price. So I would encourage everyone out there to jump on this while you can. If another item from you guys does come along, it will almost certainly be at a higher price point for something like this, based on what you've just said. And I would argue that whatever it is, I mean, if it's if it's in the same zip code, is certainly a worthwhile price.
yeah.
But my goodness, it's just, and people might say, oh, why doesn't it have 85 points of articulation? Why is it made of metal and blah 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 blah? Well, that stuff costs a lot of money, and this is a labor of love, in a sort of a Valentine to Panosh place of old, right?
Not to mention that the modern kind of toy has a million different points of articulation and whatnot, and this is intentional. The 5 points of articulation, we wanted it to make it feel as though it fits in the line back in the 80s, so that was definitely intentional. But to get back to the pricing, yeah, so on the collector side of things, I feel like it's an incredible value. I mean, there's several other kind of independent designers and toy manufacturers that have licenses that are producing things at the $150 price point, $200 price point,
Oh yeah.
Um, and we kind of compared some similar items that are vinyl. Ours is actually taller, full paint deco, and it's less than half the price. And if you want to even go as far as to compare it to, like, let's say Super 7, granted it's Super 7, they're a much larger company and producing in bigger volumes, but their 14, 18-inch vinyls are selling for $250, $300.
Yeah.
And this is no less quality. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a tremendous bargain. And like Tim said, once they're gone, they're gone. So
Yeah. And let's pretend we want to compare this thing to Funko Pops. What are those things, like $10 a piece? So for the
Okay.
price of 6
I
Funko
think
Pops,
they're
you can get
15
this.
now.
Are they?
Yeah.
So somewhere between 4 and 6 of those, you can get one of these. And my gosh, if this thing doesn't run circles around any Funko Pop in terms of the look,
Yeah.
this thing doesn't have a marshmallow head, and you know what I mean. This is a really cool looking design. It's beautiful.
It's authentic to the cartoon.
And
Yes.
and e- and even if you don't like Panoche Place, number one, oh, I feel for you. But if you don't like Panoche Place, the Matchbox, the classic Popey Bondi Go Lion toys, the Die Ruggers of that time were not very highly articulated either. So you're still the 5 points of articulation still gets you in the same neighborhood as other 80s toys, including 80s Voltron toys. So, I mean, you could stand this next to a Matchbox Voltron, and it would make a really nice display piece. It just looks phenomenal.
And that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of people who got this and then having it next to whatever their favorite Voltron is and having it, you know, in some kind of a scene or something like that. I just want to see all the pictures of everybody that's going to enjoy the fact that their Robeast is as big as their Voltron.
Kyle, do you
Yeah.
have do you have a Matchbox Voltron handy?
I can grab one.
I see you have the Panosh behind you.
Yeah, I can grab. I've got 20 of them sitting in front of me. I've got to hear which one I got to grab. Yeah, just 1 second.
When we designed the toy, it was originally designed to be just like the figures, with the T there, and it was when you do vinyl, they're done differently than what your typical, say, Star Wars or Panoche Place figures would have been made like.
Are you kidding me? Look
Yeah,
at
look
that.
at that. Look at
It
that.
towers over Voltron, the Matchbox version.
Yep. So that should be about pretty close to
Yes,
same size there. Yeah.
Yeah.
that is awesome. So awesome. You guys would be, doing yourselves a disservice if you didn't share some comparison photos of that painted model next to the Panoche Place version and the Matchbox version. I mean, people really would gain a heightened appreciation for the size and
Yeah.
scale and detail of that thing.
Well, now imagine the size of the box that's going to go, that thing's going to go in now.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
exactly. So it's actually just a little bit bigger, but so here's the Panoche box, and the one for Robeast is going to be a little bit bigger. So
Uh-huh.
Nice.
That
Yeah,
is,
I mean, we tried to keep it as close as possible to the size of the Panoche Place box.
that's
With
amazing.
it being the same size, we were trying to keep it that size. I think it's a little thicker than the Panoche Place box. And
Yeah, your Robeast has big feet, so yeah.
yeah,
and here's a sword comparison.
Oh my.
It's
That's
Wow.
dead
this
on.
exact same size.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
amazing.
So I can
That's
see
so
like
cool.
a Spaceballs scene with Voltron and the Robeast. So I see your sword is as big as mine. Love it. I'm so excited. I was stoked about this when I first heard about it, and Tim has shared with me a couple little images here and there along the way, just a couple little teasers, and each time I've seen any kind of update, I've been more excited. But my goodness, seeing the 3D printed one that you've been showing there, Tim, and Kyle, the painted version in comparison with the Matchbox and Panache versions, yeah, that's just killer. It's so cool.
now that painted version that Kyle has, his son painted that for him.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a pretty avid painter. He does a lot of painting, so I employed him to kind of paint this, so it'd have more of a professional paint job, better than I could do.
That's
And
so cool.
I asked for mine to remain this, to make it look like a prototype that would have been made in the 80s, based on the other prototypes that I have that were wax, that are similar colors than that. So that's why I wanted mine the color it is, to make it look like the prototype that would have been waxed made back in the 80s.
That's so neat. Wow.
Okay, this is the factory test sample.
Yes.
Yeah,
That you can see it. You can see where on there where it's missing the spike on the arm, where Kyle was talking about earlier. You can see that on that one, it was an
Yeah, the
early
right arm.
production on the right arm. It's missing the spike.
Yeah.
And you guys have changed that. I'm just blown away.
But yeah, you can see how, I mean, that is the paint sample. So you can see how well they match the colors to the sample that I sent them.
Yep. That's pretty
Wow.
cool. That's
And
pretty cool.
the sword is going to be a very similar silver color as you see on the throughout the Robeast.
That's
really
so
nice.
nice.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out too that right arm and the left arms, they are intentionally different. That way, when he raises his arm, it's a little bit different of an angle compared to his left arm. So just gives it a little bit different, viewpoint. So that's intentional.
I think that's nice. I mean, when you have limited articulation, when you're at 5 points like that, it's nice to have some asymmetry. I mean, and it
Right.
reminds me of the action figures from Panosh Place, and of course Kenner Star Wars and all that, and in their Wampa and Rancor back in the day, the bigger characters. I mean, they didn't have identical left and right legs or arms, and this is a nice throwback.
Now, when you're looking at molding, it's beneficial if you are able to have identical legs and arms because then you only have to pay for the tooling for that one arm or one leg. But
Right, right.
obviously, that's not what we have.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they were identical but mirrored, you'd still have to have the tooling for both, right? Because I mean, they're oriented differently, aren't they?
No, but they can modify it to be able to do use it for one mold, but
Can they really? Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Nice.
But that's not. I mean, I obviously we're not doing that, so and it won't be done
Yeah,
that way.
it's
Mhm.
academic at this point, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Wow,
That's
that's
just
nice.
that's just wonderful.
So to those of you who are listening to the podcast on our audio outlets and aren't watching the YouTube video, you've been missing some really, really great imagery of this upcoming Dieklops Robeast. And you can find photos of this, of course, on the Voltron store listing, but also at the new Panosh Place Facebook page. Do you guys have any other social media outlets aside from Facebook?
We have Instagram, and Kyle, did we set up the X, Twitter, whatever you call it?
We do have one, but we primarily post on Facebook. But yeah, it's the Panosh Place Global Facebook page is kind of the one where we do our updates for Dieklops, and for future projects we'll post there too. We do also kind of anytime we have an update, we'd like to try to post it to as many kind of groups as we possibly can, just to kind of get it out there and make sure everybody sees it and doesn't miss it. But I will say that we kind of are probably most active on Voltron Toys and Collectibles Facebook group.
Okay. Well,
So
good deal.
join
That's
Voltron Toys and Collectible. And
yes, and
follow
of course,
Panosh Place Global. Adrian runs a toy store in Australia also. When it's a kind of a side project for him. He runs a toy store and it is named Panosh Place there also. So he has a website also and Facebook page called Panosh Place. And so that's why we went Panosh Place Global to try to differentiate that market.
good deal.
Yeah, that's
This is
awesome.
exciting. So, Adrian out there on the internet, thank you so much for your part in all this. And Tim, Kyle, thank you. My goodness. I got one more question, if you don't mind. Collectors first, collectible makers second. Do you find are you able to continue to view this as a collector, or have you gotten kind of lost in the weeds of making at this point on this item? Is it hard to take that maker hat off and think about this as a collector objectively?
No, I think that throughout this entire process, we have thought of this as a collector. And especially when designing the box or the toy, it's like, this is something, how would we want this in our collection? How's this going to fit in with my Panosh Place collection? How's this going to fit in with the other toys in Kyle's Voltron collection, or, Brad or Mark or Greg? How's it going to fit into their collections? So I mean, I really don't think of it as this is a project of let's bring something to our collectors that they have never had. And it's always been about the collectors, not about the producing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, first and foremost, kind of when we're designing these projects and Dieklops, it's kind of like, sure, we're kind of tailoring it to what would we like as a collector, like what would we want, right? And as soon as we kind of get that base level thought out, then we kind of turn the viewpoint on, okay, what would other collectors want? Because we're making this for everybody, not just ourselves. So we're taking anybody that's got some criticism or feedback or pats in the back, we're taking all of that in, and potentially considering some of that, in our designs. So because we're making it for the collectors, so we want to make sure it's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that when we get bad feedback from people, though, it hurts. You put the effort in, you put the time in, and you get feedback from people. And then you finally post something, and you hear negatives about it, and I don't know, it kind of upsets you. Like, why are they saying bad things about it? We're trying to bring things that people want to the community, and then you got one guy who just keeps screaming, "It's too expensive! It's too expensive!" And like, we can get this done for a lot cheaper. Well, I'm to tell you, you can't get this done for $1 cheaper than what we're making it.
No, and
So,
you're never
in this
gonna,
limited quantity.
right.
Now,
And
if we produced 10,000 of these, we could have made them a lot cheaper if I could produce 10,000 of them, because then that scales the cost of the mold cost tons down.
yeah, that they don't all understand the supply chain and how pre-pandemic, things used to be a lot cheaper, but post-pandemic, yeah, supply chain costs are way up from what they used to be.
Well, I think, yeah, that is one part, but just in the whole scheme of developing a product from start to finish, the amount of variables, the amount of check boxes, the amount of line items you've got to complete to get from design to in consumers' hands, it's a lot. And if you've never kind of done something like this, you don't realize the effort that it takes. So like Tim's saying, yeah, there's some relevance to when somebody says, "Hey, I don't like this," or "I don't like the price," or "It's too, it's not enough this," or whatever. It's we just gotta shrug it off and be like, whatever. It's like, the people that are gonna complain are gonna be the loudest, right? But at the end of the day, the majority of the people are going to be happy with the product, and when we're definitely doing it with care and with love and with the collector's mind at heart. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's such a great philosophy to have.
Yeah, and do you guys have any idea if it's nearing production, how long this could take before we actually would be able to see those?
The goal was to have it by the end of March, which was being the end of the first quarter. Because of the Chinese New Year, that pushed the whole schedule back. So I'm hoping to have them at least shipped to the United States by the middle to end of April.
Okay.
But we will. I mean, but again, the factory communication on that issue, not getting a timeline at this point on how long that's going to be, or when production will be able to start. Obviously, they're running tons of other projects at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it looks like it's definitely worth the wait. And we're so excited that you guys have, and Adrian, of course, have taken the initiative to create a really special collectible for Voltron fans around the world. Thank you.
And I will say that this couldn't have been possible without Bob and Tiffany at WP. They have been very supportive of this project, and obviously it's exclusive on their website. And they have been great to work with. Tiffany is outstanding. She's a great communicator, very nice. Bob's outstanding to talk with. They both love Voltron, and just they want to see us succeed with this project as much as we do.
That's great.
Yeah,
So check out the Voltron store if you want one of these.
yeah, and I just have one more question for you guys before you go. Of all the things of Voltron fandom, what is the thing that sticks out to you the most as to why you love being a Voltron fan?
for me, I've gone to VoltCon every single year since the first year, and I look forward to next year and hanging out with you guys again, hanging out with the guys that I've met on the Voltron boards. We've got a little side group of guys that we talk all the time. So just kind of getting together, it's like a little family reunion. So I think, as cliche as it is, Voltron brings you together. Form Voltron, form friendships, form similar interest and being able to have a group of people to talk to. And for me, that's kind of the human side that I love Voltron, as far as collecting goes. There's so many variations and variants and just the hunt. I love that, especially with the die-cast Voltrons and the lion bots and the matchboxes and all the different variants. That's exciting. But I think just in general, Voltron as a whole brings a community of people together. Whether it's to talk about the cartoon, to talk about the toys, that's what I enjoy.
Cool.
Like I said at the beginning of the video, that I was a G.I. Joe collector for years, and when early days in the G.I. Joe collecting, the community was great. Towards the end, it fractured, and everybody was arguing with everybody else, and then I came over to the Voltron world, and everybody was just so nice. Everybody was willing to help you. I just remember, Greg jumping in anytime I had any questions, because I was new into it, and they were, he was right there, so nice and responsive, and everybody. I mean, throughout this entire process, everybody has been so nice. I mean, Greg and I met up down in Columbus at a toy show, had a good time there with Mark Oliver, and I mean, it has like Kyle said, the relationships that you are building here, those are the most important parts. But it takes you back to being a kid. That's what I love about it. I'm collecting the toys that I had as a kid, and that's why I love them. Is because it takes you back to that element of innocence and not the stress that we from everyday life that we don't have and as a kid. So
that's awesome. Totally awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to you both. Thank you, Adrian, out there in the internet, and we wish you guys all the best of success with this project, with the Robeast Dieklops, and with anything that may lie ahead in your futures.
Great, thank you.
I will say that our pre-orders as of today are only like 45% sold. So if we can encourage your listeners to pre-order a few more, that'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So store.voltron.com, you can still get it.
Yes.
That's great.
Limited to 500. So we're 200 and I think 260 of them are left. So don't miss the opportunity, because I mean, once these are gone, people are buying multiples of them, and they're gone. I'm guessing they're not going to be out there on the market very much because Voltron collectors are buying them to keep them.
Yeah. And then
definitely check that out.
This is really important to a lot of us that are, looking forward to seeing for the first time ever in 40 years. We're talking about 40 years here that we haven't had a Robeast the same size as the Voltrons.
Yeah, which is great. And when we started this project, I didn't realize it was going to take this long to get to it, but it's great that it's happening in the 40th year.
Yes.
And hopefully we can offer another item by the end of the year.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be great.
We're looking it's not going to probably be a Robeast, but more of a figure size item, like a 3 3/4 inch, 4-inch figure.
Nice.
We're definitely looking to kind of continue that line. And I know, Greg, that you've kind of customized and made some of your own Dierugger pilots. So if you're interested in that Panosh style 3 3/4, keep an eye out and help support us. We'll continue making more.
Well, definitely looking forward to it. I love action figures and that scale, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and thank you guys for bringing this to us from Panosh Place. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
And we'll see you all next time on
Let's Voltron.
Thanks for watching. For all things Voltron, check out Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast, at letsvoltron.com.